Okay, so you read the title and you're wondering. Wait a second. Troy is a saga title. How can it be expanded into an age of mythology total war when saga titles are meant to be low budget? They're meant to go and focus on smaller periods, focusing more on stories that concerned history. Like, for example, Alexander the Great or Thrones of Britannia. But the question is, why must Troy become the next age of mythology total war? That is a big question, and I'll be presenting my case to you, the viewer, as to why I think Troy must become the next age of mythology total war contender. Let's be clear, Troy is not going to become an Age of Mythology game because it doesn't have the same mechanics as Age of Mythology, but what is going to happen is that Troy will become its own mythological game, something which CA hasn't really done before. Sure, they've probably done Warhammer and they've represented fantasy, but what they haven't done is that they haven't created an historical game with mythology in a full-scale game. We have Troy, for example, which adds the Mythos mode, which is the first time that I would say that CA is adding these mythological creatures from Greek mythology. My argument is that Troy must become the next mythological total war game. But one could say that, okay, for example, if Troy does become a mythological game, doesn't that mean that is completely ruining the concept of what a saga title is meant to be? I argue that saga titles might need a bit of reinvention. I think they could have some rebranding. I think, in a way, Troy could become something else. Let Troy retain its historical mode and expand on the DLCs that will come with it, perhaps with a Mythos mode. But I'm arguing that Troy needs to become the next Age of Mythology total war because it needs to add Egypt, it needs to add Assyria, it needs to add, Babylon, it needs to add all these factions, it needs to add the Hittites and the Sea Peoples. Because if you look at Troy is a fantastic game by itself, alright? And it focuses on the Trojan Peninsula. But the main problem is, you are ignoring the rich scale of the Bronze Age civilizations that were there. Right? When you put Egypt, when you put Assyria, when you put Babylon, when you put the Hittites, these were civilizations of culture and learning. These were civilizations that were adding, these were civilizations that were expanding, that were, they were so religious. They had so many things going on. Just by focusing on Troy, you are ignoring the rich legacy. It would be like me saying that in Hannibal at the Gates campaign, we just focus on Hannibal attack in Spain, and we wouldn't focus anything to do with Gaul or Rome or anything. My case is simple. It will take us 10 years perhaps to get a full-scale Bronze Age total war game, whether that be historical or that be mythological. Because the focus that total war fans, the majority that wants, what do they want? They want an Empire 2 and a Medieval 3, maybe even a Victorian total war or World War 1. The mainstream appeal for the Bronze Age isn't quite there at the moment. But, and there's a big but, what if Troy is that perfect platform to expand beyond Greece? But why expand it? So let's move on to the main point. Because, as I've said, you do ignore the richness of the entire period. So have a look at this Imperator Rome mod. For example, the Bronze Age mod. You have Egypt, Assyria, Babylon. Greece is but a small area of the map. And while Troy solely focuses on the Aegean, it is a game in essence that focuses on a total war era story. Just like Napoleon solely focused on Europe and not many other regions, despite the fact that the Caribbean was a hotbed of French and British conflicts, in Italy, in the Balkans. However, now is the time to turn this total war era style story game into a sandbox total war campaign game. What do I mean by that? I mean, you add the Sea People, the Egyptians, the Assyrians, the Babylonians. You can then expand the map. It shouldn't be like the Normans landed onto your shores in Thrones of Britannia. If you're going to add Egypt, expand the map. If you're going to add the Hittites, expand the map. If you're going to add all these factions, expand the map. Because I bet you not. And because I bet you, when CA released that trailer for Mythos, the fans were going wild in that comment section for adding other different mythologies. CA knew that these comments were going to come. If I was in charge of making that trailer, and I was making this trailer representing the mythological creatures, even I knew Even I know that many people would be saying, we want an Age of Mythology Total War. This is one of these gold mines that CA can really mine into. So, with the Mythos update, Troy must add these factions. And I believe that Troy is closer to the date of the Battle of Kadesh, but I think it could be or could be not. We could have, for example, how about Ramesses with his mystical army of sphinxes and giant scorpions and Ushabti and, the army of the undead? Or how about we have Gilgamesh with his legendary Sumerian army? Of course, Gilgamesh is quite old, but as an example. Or the tales of the glorious Hittite armies making their way to expand into Asia Minor. Or we could have the aggressive Assyrian Empire wanting to dominate the entire Mediterranean. In fact, we could even make something like the Assyrian Empire funded the sea peoples to go and destroy Greece. Of course, that's a tinfoil hat thing, but as an example, this is the type of thing you could do. And this will work completely well with Mythos and with historical mode. Because I think it would really work from there. And when you see the potential Mythos has with these civilizations, you can only assume that this is what we need. So a user named Wahid said on this thread here on Reddit that they should go full crazy on this game maybe. Go and embrace the Age of Mythologies, man. Give us a map the size of Rome 2 and Mythos. Give it to us, CA. This is the perfect opportunity to expand into the Bronze Age and give us Total War mythology. Why you think Troy shouldn't expand further? Because here's what I'm saying. We'll have to wait for the next 10 years if we don't get a full-scale Bronze Age Total War game. The mainstream appeal is not there at the moment, but the mainstream appeal is with Troy. And if you add the other factions, you can also add a mainstream element to it. Right? Egypt is known for its pharaohs and pyramids, easy so. The Assyrians might be a little hard, but you can figure out something. Or the Hittites, they're literally unknown, but you can add some mainstream enticing elements into it. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm not trying to say to expand Troy into this massive campaign map, no. I'm saying add all these factions, but do it in a way that feels appropriate to the game. Happy Compy has made a video about how they should add the Sea Peoples and add all these other factions. My video is just simply saying that CA, you need to make this the next Age of Mythology contender. You need to make this game a mythological game. Because Troy from the outset was meant to be a mythological game in the first place. Do I understand the approach of the truth behind the myth approach? Yes, it's a great concept and it definitely works. But you need to let Troy embrace, because right now it is crying out loud to expand with other mythology. Troy can become that game. People might say that, what about historicals? When will they come? Here's what I'm saying. Thrones of Britannia, here's what I'm saying. Troy so far is still doing quite well. And the Mythos mode definitely adds it. But if you're going to add mythology into this, the other thing that should happen is that when CA decides to expand into Egypt, they should discount the Mythos DLC. Now that needs to be discounted at least. It needs to be discounted at maybe £10 or something like that. Discount it at that price so that you can entice more players to come and get involved in this Age of Mythology, because there are many players that will go into Troy. They'll probably try the Mythos DLC. Then they'll say, oh, what about Egypt? What about other mythological factions? It's what we want, CA. And, this is just my humble request. At the end of the day, CA will decide what they want to do with Troy and where they want to expand it. What I'm saying is that they have the potential to make this the next Age of Mythology, CA. You mustn't miss this opportunity, and this is a really good time. A really fantastic time to make this full mythological. In fact, one could call this historical Warhammer. And I don't mind. Make it historical Warhammer. Make it into something, make it into that. Make it into historical Warhammer. And I can understand the reaction that, okay, if we made it historical Warhammer, what about the rest of the historical titles? My response to that is, CA still has time to announce a major historical title. That's all I wanted to say, And if we're gonna have an Age of Mythology Total War, I think it should be Troy. And if Troy doesn't become that next Age of Mythology Total War, maybe in 10 years time we'll probably have a game that does exactly what we want. That is a Bronze Age game that has Mythos and that has historical mode. That would be fantastic, right? But I think it's better to say it now than to just wait for 10 years and not even. Thanks, and don't forget to leave a like, share, comment, and subscribe. See ya.